Welcome to Men's Monday. We hope you're having a good Monday. I got a quick story that happened to me early in the 2000s. My wife and I had moved into a brand new house in Pleasant Garden. We came from a small 500 square foot house. Now we're in this Taj Mahal of 1,500 square feet. We couldn't have been happier. All we could think is, how in the world are we ever going to fill this up? My wife was thinking, in all the cabinets, how are we ever going to fill these up? Well, you know the rest of that story. It's pretty easy to fill up any size house, no matter how big it is. But the story begins about 5 weeks after we purchased it. And we started having some problems with the water. And then, long story short, we had a big birthday party planned. And my wife comes outdoors. I just finished mowing the yard. And she says, we don't have any water. Which, I have a family that I've been around well drilling most of my life, and so I figured, well, it's probably just a pump that burned out. Terrible timing, but it's probably just a pump. So people start showing up, and we just explain to them, we'll have the water fixed in just a little bit, and little did I know that that little bit turned into almost 3 weeks. See, what happened was my well went dry. And fracking really wasn't an option then, so we just set up and began to drill another well the very next day. And what you plan on is you go to work and you come home and the well rig's gone and they've dug the hole and we move on. Well, there wasn't just one hole they digged that week. They dug 2 holes that week. The next week they dug another hole. And then finally on the 3rd week, I think they found water at the first of the 3rd week. I have over 1,000 foot in one hole, 680, 600, and then about 250, I think, on the last hole. Total, I have 5 wells, including the dry hole, on my property. The well driller said this. He said, just in the first week alone, we spent $2,500 just in diesel fuel digging. And I knew we were talking thousands upon thousands of dollars. I remember in the middle of the 2nd week walking out of my house. You can imagine the mess because we were cutting trees down to get the well rig into new locations. We were also had sediment everywhere. It was absolutely a mess. Something that just a couple weeks prior we couldn't be happier with, and we just were astounded how God had provided this for us. And I turned around and looked at this house, and it hit me. This house is not worth $1. It's not worth the lumber that it was built with. I want you to think about it. If you had an opportunity to buy a house at a really good deal, the realtor said the only problem is it doesn't have running water. You can't take a shower, can't wash clothes. By the way, you can't flush the toilet, nor can you wash your hands. Who would step up and say, I'm in? Nobody. That would be ridiculous. You know what? This was true even in the Old Testament. The Old Testament, you were considered wealthy if you had your own well, or cistern as they called it. If you had your own cistern, you were considered a very, very wealthy person, a very blessed person. In fact, cities that had cisterns or well inside their city walls was very important, because when the enemies attacked them, the first thing they would do is cut off their water supply, and eventually the people would begin to starve to death. And it wouldn't take but just a few days that they would become so dehydrated and that they would have to give up. And so the wells in the Bible are a very, very precious thing. Water in the Bible is a very precious thing. And if you are a very wealthy man, if you have a well or a water source that's working properly. In fact, Solomon's writing to a young man. In fact, it's his young son. And he's giving him wisdom and understanding. Guys, if there's passages of scripture that you need to read and you need to put to memory, it's Proverbs 5, 6, and 7. Not Proverbs chapter 5, verse 6, verse 7, but Proverbs chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. And he talks about the warnings of a strange woman, the adulterous woman that's going to try to lead you astray. We have women like that all over the world that is there to try to destroy your life. And he's given his son a warning about this type of woman. He starts to talk about a woman that is very valuable. And this is what he says in Proverbs chapter 5, verse 15. He says, drink water from your own cistern. Drink water from your own cistern and fresh water from your own well. He's referring to this young man's wife to be as a well or a cistern. And here's the principle behind it. That if you have a wife that she is extremely valuable. She's priceless. Her price is far above any ruby that you can ever cash in. I want to tell you this. There's a lot of women out there that's going to try to lead you astray from your own well. And this is what he's saying. Do not go to somebody else's cistern to drink water. He said, let your wife from your youth satisfy you at all times. Now, I've often thought, how does this apply to young men? I mean, that's what Solomon was writing it to. We understand how this applies for married men. Let me say this to the young men who are not married yet. God is digging you a well. And he's daily digging you a well. And just because you don't know her name yet, if God's given you that desire in your heart, he's probably going to fulfill it. And you don't know her name. You don't know what her hair looks like. But God's digging you a well. And what I'm saying is you need to be faithful to the well that God is digging you. Because one day there's going to be an accountability. One day there's going to be a reckoning. And you're going to have to testify that you've been faithful to her and her alone. Or you're going to have to give an account that you haven't been. And I want to tell you, be faithful to your own well. If you haven't met her yet, or she lives with you now, if you've been married 1 year or you've been married 40, continue to be faithful to your own cistern and only drink waters from your own home. God bless you. I pray you have a good day.